Hi, my name is Kathleen Terner. I ride a 2018 Harley-Davidson Softail Slim. I got my license a little less than 3 years ago, and since then I've put on over 50,000 miles on my bike, loving every minute of it. I've written a book about my life-changing summer adventure, and it's called Two-Wheeled Wind Therapy. Just a little over a year and a half ago, I was dying of throat cancer and also going through a second divorce. And to be honest with you, I was at a really low point in my life. I was in a lot of pain, felt a lot of despair, and I really kind of wondered if I would ever be able to feel joy again. But a lot has changed in the last year or so, partially due to very good friends, also because of my deep personal faith, but also because of the life-changing motorcycle adventure that I had last summer. What happened is that last spring I had been separated from my older son in Washington, D.C. for several months. Neither of us had wanted to travel across the country by airplane during the pandemic. So I made the decision, even though I had only had my motorcycle endorsement for a couple years, to take a solo 8-week cross-country trip to see him and to celebrate being alive. I'm happy to tell you that that trip was life-changing and transformational for me, and now I am happy to be experiencing more confidence, more joy, and more hope than I ever thought possible. I think part of the reason why the trip was so life-changing for me is because of all the challenges that I faced and the obstacles that I overcame on my trip. I had been very afraid of living alone. Being alone, traveling alone, being on my bike alone, and really that was part of why I stayed in a difficult marriage longer than I should have. But facing that fear and heading out on an 8-week solo trip completely on my own and having the time of my life was very freeing for me. Another thing that was really encouraging to me as a person was going on 2 endurance rides during my trip. I headed out on the first one, not sure if I could make 1,000 miles in less than 24 hours. And about 400 miles in, I thought, I'm having so much fun, why don't I just keep going? And so I ended up doing 1,500 miles in less than 36 hours on 2 separate occasions on my trip. And what I really took away from that experience is that I am a much stronger person than I realized I was. Another thing I got to do is spend time with my son in Washington, D.C., and that really gave me a chance to reflect on how blessed I was and how many things I had to be grateful for, and I really appreciated that. Also, I took on some technical driving, so I did, for instance, Beartooth Pass and Million Dollar Highway. I think the more difficult ride for me was Dragon's Tail. And for me, after I successfully completed that a couple times, I almost felt like it was a rite of passage where I could learn to be a biker in my own right rather than somebody else's riding partner. I also spent over a week in triple-digit heat on my bike. So I'm not the type of person that necessarily loves extreme heat, and I had actually hesitated to make that decision on that leg of my trip. But I saw there were so many wonderful national parks in the area and decided to go for it and ended up falling in love with so many beautiful places. And I have to tell you that I think what I took away from that is that sometimes when we take on difficulties, or in this case, literally embrace the heat, we can experience blessings and joy that we might not have otherwise. I also spent some time in California with people I had known from when I was younger and had time to kind of reflect on where I was in my life. And we've all had things happen to us that maybe we wished hadn't happened. But the thing I came to understand is that while the past might have kind of shaped who we are today, it doesn't have to define who we are today, because really it is up to us to choose where we want to go from here forward. So I came back from my trip really excited about sharing the positive life lessons that I had learned on my trip. I did end up authoring a book called Two-Wheeled Wind Therapy that shares about my life-changing motorcycle adventure and each of the positive life lessons I learned along the way. I think part of why I feel so passionate about sharing about this journey for me is because I find bike riding to be so therapeutic. I love the feel of the wind in my face and the road and the rumble of the bike, and honestly, I feel that riding helps me to experience being alive in a way that nothing else does. For example, when I'm going by the ocean, I can taste the salt in my mouth, I can smell the seaweed, I can hear the waves, I can feel the sun on my back, I can see the sand, and I'm alive in a way that almost nothing else helps me to do. I also just wanted to encourage you to take that next step, whatever it might be, because if I can do this, anybody can. I failed my first endorsement test less than 3 years ago, and I went back the following week and I got the lowest possible passing score that you can get. But since then, I've put 50,000 miles on my bike and loved every minute of it. So I just want to encourage you, whether that means getting your motorcycle endorsement, maybe planning a cross-country trip, maybe a solo trip, or going on an endurance ride, do take that next step. And I hope that you can experience the hope and the joy and the confidence that I have been able to. I want to encourage you to contact me or to use my website as a resource. I have tips on my website about planning a touring adventure. I have an inspirational story about passing your motorcycle endorsement. And I also have a way to contact me and to find out more information about my book. So I hope to hear from you. Thank you.